Back in 2013, the show The Heirs premiered after a lot of hype and build-up, which it received due to being written by Kim Un-suk, who had previously penned such hits as A Gentleman's Dignity and Secret Garden, and also for the star casting it had, which included, but was not limited to, Crystal Jung,
친구 가능한 남녀 청소년이 세상에 어딨어!
Kim Woo-bin,
여동생이 너무 제 취향이네요.
Lee Min-ho,
누군가를 원망하기에 난 너무 게으르다.
and Park Shin-hye.
이 와중에 나 지금 도둑놈까지 만난 거야?
The show was received very well, garnering strong ratings as well as being nominated for and winning awards, and like most shows written by Kim Un-suk, it became something of a cultural phenomenon even with it being one of her less popular shows. I was also really excited to watch it when it first started airing, but I started hearing comments early on that were complaints about the way the show starts out, saying it spends its first couple of episodes in America where it portrays everyone there as being, essentially, gambling, alcoholic, and drug-addicted moral degenerates who treat everyone like dirt and are constantly soliciting prostitutes.
As we know from Heirs, if you go overseas for more than a year, you'll start hanging around with crazy party people who
do nothing but drugs all the
powder
time.
from your.
And when I first heard these claims, my initial reaction was, yeah, I buy this. I buy that a K-drama would represent America that badly. Because even though I was still relatively new to the K-drama scene, I had seen enough times by then K-dramas actively and shamelessly portraying non-Korean characters as unequivocally terrible or ridiculous, the only middle ground just being painfully flat characters.
Did you find your lost father? Yes, that's right! I found my father! I just got a card from Korea! Oh my god! 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 Oh my god!
And the way other countries were treated was no better, with scenes and plot points taking place in other countries circumventing rules of reality or logic, because, well, it's not Korea, so it's possible this could be true, even if it's not probable, and even if it's not probable, it's not happening in Korea, so who cares? It is apparently very easy for audiences to suspend disbelief over things happening outside of Korea, so much so that things that are not possible in the realm of reality suddenly are. Suffice it to say, after hearing this about the show a couple of times, I had lost interest. I had also heard that it did actually get good once it got back to Korea, and I've definitely seen a lot of reference jokes to the almighty double wrist grab or the iconically K-drama music featured. Recently, Mr. Sunshine, a new K-drama also written by Kim Un-suk, started airing on Netflix, and I decided to give it a shot because I enjoyed the beginning of Descendants of the Sun and loved Goblin, and it just looked good. Starting it, I was reminded of something that impressed me about both of the previous shows, which was that she seemed to be the only person in Korea capable of representing foreigners and foreign countries in, if not a completely realistic, at least a respectable light. I really appreciated that, and that, to the point I've seen, has carried through into this show. I was so impressed by Kim Un-suk, in fact, that I decided to go ahead and make a video discussing this trend in K-dramas, and also to highlight the amazing job she had done. But to do that, I knew I needed to include the Heirs and the shows I needed to watch or rewatch in order to make this video. So, despite still being disinterested in this show because of bad hearsay, and also a general disinterest in Lee Min-ho, whose last couple of shows I've seen were bad. Just bad. Oh, Son Ye-jin, you deserve so much better than this. I reminded myself that this was Kim Un-suk, and that those other people were probably just overreacting. And then I got about 3/4 of the way through the first episode and realized...
It was a shit show.
Come on, it wasn't exactly...
Let me finish.
Let me count the ways in which this show sucks ass. Park Shin-hye arrived in Sodom, America, to learn that everyone cheats on each other, and they do it openly. This girl cheats on her boyfriend, this guy cheats on Park Shin-hye's sister with the girl who is clearly oh so trashy.
Hey you, are you Stella husband?
Husband? We just live together.
Live together. 동거? 결혼한다며? When are you getting married with Stella?
Married? Why would I marry Stella?
Wait, no, they aren't together, they just live together and he's sleeping with the blonde girl. So they're roommates. Okay, that's fine.
How many girls are you seeing right now?
Wait, the way she says that makes me wonder if he is actually sleeping with her sister and the blonde girl?
They're coming to the house?
Wait, does she stay there too?
I can't stop him from coming to the house.
Who is she?
So he is sleeping with multiple people? I don't know. I don't know. Also, the fact that this place just clearly looks like a set. Like, the girl's supposed to look trashy, but, like, she's just so well put together, and the guy is so well groomed. And the place is a pit, but it's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's a set. It's a set. If you're working as a waitress, even in a restaurant that seems absurdly nice, although for some reason has a really ridiculous and unprofessional uniform, and it's the middle of the day, you will apparently be treated like a stripper, with men throwing themselves at you, tucking money in your shirt, and actually, literally, trying to solicit you.
What are you doing tonight? Why don't you work for me tonight?
Work?
Work.
And this will all happen out in the open for anyone to see in the span of that's right, 1 minute, because America is just that depraved. Also, she just runs away as soon as she gets the money. Wasn't she in the middle of working? Does nobody care that she just left to fight with somebody and then ran away? Managers? Other waiters? The hostesses? No?
Jeez, who is that girl? Talk about a fallen angel. You are always one step ahead of me.
Well, I will not deny the guys, at least the white American guys, can be the utter worst, and some truly would look at a girl in the middle of a walkway sobbing, kneeling down by an open suitcase, and would start talking about her being hot and wanting to bone her or whatever. I can't imagine any of them being so blasé about the fact that she's freaking crying. Normal people would be concerned. Douches would be turned off.
I'll take care of the rest. You don't think she has a gun, right?
What?
I've decided I believe in God because I've met you. Thank God.
What?
Thank you.
What? I'm sorry. What?
Are
Are you freaking kidding me? He seriously thought she had drugs. What even is this scene? And he still struggling in front of everyone, and the powder goes everywhere, and he's not, no. And your stupid explanation is so unbelievably stupid.
게다가 마약까지.
단지 취한 것뿐이야. 진짜 마약 하나 애웠으면 미숫가루와 마약은 구별했겠지.
Also,
그럼 그쪽도 나랑 동갑 아닌가?
really? Really? He's playing a 17-year-old? He was 26 when the show was being made, and it's really distracting when a grown man, was obviously not a teenager anymore, is trying to pass as a high school student. Plus, his character is supposed to be this typical super angsty, introspective teen archetype, but Lee Min-ho is too old to pull that off effectively, and at best just comes off as a brooding college student with just a hint of angst. He looks and acts too old for this role. And this. Hanging out in a neighborhood at night, you are constantly hearing police sirens. In a neighborhood, not an apartment, a neighborhood. Where is this neighborhood anyway? Oh my gosh. Yes. Exactly, yes. A gang of white boys. One of them has a backpack? Dear Lord, I was wrong. These kids aren't a gang, but a group of friends coming home from the library where they study for their upcoming exams. The kid with the backpack is a school valedictorian. Shame on me for prejudging people. Shame on me.
Not to be crass, but this sucked ass. This was a shit show.
What just really makes this whole thing worse to me is that I recently started to think, before watching the show, that the criticism I heard was wrong, and that the show was probably representing injustices that actually happen to Asians or Asian women when they go to America. I've learned some things more recently that made me more sympathetic to that idea, and I actually started believing that maybe these complaints were coming from white people who had never seen themselves being represented to be so terrible in opposition to non-white people, and it was hard for them to stomach despite it being true. That's definitely not the case here. While there are some truths within this depiction of America, it is so cartoonish, ridiculous, and unreal that the truth barely even matters. One of those injustices is that, in America, Asian women are stereotyped as incredibly subservient, and that subservience is fetishized for white men. This isn't a big secret either. The stereotype is incredibly common and still sneaks its way into popular media today. There's even a subgenre of porn dedicated to Asian women that's also not super rare. So, the idea for this scene is definitely founded in truth, it's just executed so terribly it undermines the message. At least for non-Koreans it does. As I mentioned, The Heirs actually did very well when it aired in Korea, climbing up to the #1 spot for viewership ratings in Seoul and the #2 spot nationwide. Why? Because apparently nobody cares that none of this makes any sense and is ridiculous. It doesn't take place in Korea, and the characters that don't make any sense are in Korean, so who cares? Considering the show came out when the Hallyu wave was really gaining momentum after Gangnam Style, I would have assumed the creators of the show would. For those who don't know, the Hallyu wave was the name for the rising popularity of K-pop and K-dramas overseas in other countries. There was a lot of pride for the rising popularity of Korean pop entertainment internationally, so you'd think they would take care not to insult their new audience to ensure that growth. would continue. But nope. It is possible that the actual reason was because this was the first time so many other countries really took notice of the entertainment being produced in Korea. So it was the first time anything they made was being scrutinized and held up to an international standard of really anything. Not only just the art itself, but the politics within it, the sexism, homophobia, and of course, the racism, to name a few topics. There has been a dramatic shift over the past few years in how shows address these subjects, as people learn that these prejudices aren't okay, and Korea is no longer just living in its own bubble where it can continue on like an elderly person in a retirement home whose only company are people who are basically just echoing back the same prejudices. And proof of that change is clearly seen in the evolution of the way Kim Won-suk portrays these elements. And it's fantastic, and I don't want that to get lost in my ranting about the heirs. Since that show, she has essentially 180'd on how she portrays foreign characters and countries, and now strives to present them as real characters and places. Unfortunately, she's almost the only one. The thing is, it's annoying to watch a show and see a character be vilified simply because they are not Korean, and to see entire countries be misrepresented because they are not Korea. More than that, it's incredibly frustrating from a narrative standpoint because these elements always reek of lazy storytelling. Creators never have to worry about properly developing non-Korean characters because they are perpetually seen as less than, inferior in any and every possible way, annoying, and or just downright terrible. Depicting other countries is different in that they are allowed some positives, such as providing stunning visuals. However, aside from how the nature and architectural structures look, creators care very little about the country itself. Often creators will set parts of stories in other countries that are so visually removed from anything in Korea that it almost feels unreal, to give themselves more leeway in breaking laws of logic and reality in order to tell whatever story they want without restrictions. They don't bother with how people would act in these cultures or what laws and law enforcement is truly like because Korean audiences probably don't know, and so will go along with sheer nonsense because the unfamiliarity of the land and cities, and even sometimes the people, allows them to forgive that nonsense. When seeing the exact same thing happen in Seoul among Koreans would only remind the viewers of reality and force them to contextualize what is happening on screen with real-world logic. And the truth is, almost none of these scenes would ever pass under that type of scrutiny, and creators are fully aware of this.
Dysfunction is our lingua franca.
The best example of this is a show called Kill Me, Heal Me. To be clear, I would like to mention that this is a show I love despite its many flaws that are not limited to what I'm about to talk about, which is the first 10 minutes or so and are quite horrible. This club is called Save the Africa. The Africa. I'd bet an American school making this club.
We have a club for the right of the sexual minority.
It's called Sexual Minority Club, and it's led by jocks. Jocks! Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like this thing would exist and it would not look like this.
How about dying together?
What? You want a group suicide? What? What? I thought you were anti-suicide, but now you want to... What?
We have measures to watch over NGO activities. Will you join us?
Okay. American colleges, and you know, America itself has a lot of things that are wrong with it. But I'll actually stand by the fact that American colleges have a lot of clubs. This is good. This is actually a good thing. Also, clubs don't care if particular people are in their clubs. I don't know. I don't understand. The first big issue I have is when a girl asks Ji-sung's character to take some paperwork to a girl named Jennifer, and the friend character is a major asshole throughout this sequence.
뭐야? 이번엔 귀농운동단체야?
Will you pass this on to Jennifer on your way home? It's the agenda for the student union meeting next week.
You can do it yourself.
Or at least he seems to be, because we have almost no context for the conversation. We know she's part of a student union, and Ji-sung is as well, and that she can't get in contact with Jennifer. Other than that, we know nothing. We know nothing about Abigail, if she slacks off on her work all the time, or why she would ask Ji-sung. We don't know if he's easily pushed around and people take advantage of that, Abigail being one of them. Or maybe she's fully aware that Jennifer's place is on the way to wherever it is Ji-sung is going, and Abigail is busy. Maybe Jennifer and Ji-sung are friends. This whole scene just doesn't make a lot of sense and confused me so much the first time I tried to watch it with a simple conversation about passing on paperwork. But what truly kills me about this episode, and what I'm really trying to get at, is this scene when Ji-sung shows up at Jennifer's place to drop off the papers. There is almost nothing believable here. The front door being unlocked is annoyingly contrived, and the fact that Jennifer—
Please call me Jennifer.
the abuse victim, is Asian, while the father, the abuser, is a big white bald guy. It's just weird and doesn't make sense. Like, of course, if there's a victim, it has to be an Asian character, and the assailant has to be some Jason Statham looking white dude. But what's worse is when the father sees Ji-sung, he just starts beating him up too, instead of, I don't know, trying to cover up what happened. And he doesn't even seem to be beating him up to keep him quiet, or because he's on a rampage. When Ji-sung comes into the house, the guy doesn't really say anything to him, just starts beating him up when he gets in the way. And when the police come in and tell him to stop, he just gives up and is calm like it was no big deal. So neither of those reasons are viable possibilities. The only thing I really do find believable is Jennifer throwing Ji-sung under the bus.
Did your father hit you? Did he hit you?
I buy that. Abuse victims can get to a point where they protect their abusers and genuinely believe they deserve what is being done to them, so this does actually make sense. This is good. But then they have one of the personalities come out, dress up, and go to the house at night and beat up the father and threaten him.
Never touch her again. I will come back and break every single piece of your bone.
And before he leaves, the daughter mouths thank you to him. Seriously? 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 The guy is in tears and agrees, and the girl says, thank you? You solved nothing, you self-satisfied piece of shit. You have only made that girl's life worse because he's not going to hold to that bargain, and as soon as he can stand, is probably going to beat the shit out of her, and will continue to do so unless you're always around her. You have killed that girl. Even if he doesn't kill her that night, he will soon. What the is wrong with you? I cannot think of another revenge scene so badly thought out and executed that results in nothing changing, possibly only just making everything worse, but the show treating it like it does.
You make Sarah fucking kill you.
Okay.
For f***'s sake, we're operating on the same level as Showgirls, one of the campiest movies. Like, he even dressed himself up and put on eyeliner for the occasion, just like Nomi does with the stuff she puts on her nipples. I mean, I guess it's the same.
First, we must highlight your eyes. The eyes are the nipples of the face.
This sequence is irredeemably terrible, but also kind of baffling in the context of the rest of the show. It's dramatic, it's over the top, but still has heart. But only in Korea, among the Koreans, between the Koreans. Also be careful about staying too long in America or you'll get addicted to gambling because we're all hitting up the casinos and doing drugs and having sex with everyone.
이제야 거래할 마음이 생긴 모양이네.
처음에 네 협박을 받았을 때 네 손에 돈을 쥐어주는 게 아니었어. 그게 마리화나 값이 되고 코카인 값이 되고 도박비가 될 줄 몰랐다. 미안하다. 내가 널 망쳐놨어.
Because we're just moral degenerates and God just needs to strike us down. And all this leads to the question of, how do they keep getting away with this? The globalization of Korean pop media has led to significant changes in areas such as racism, so why hasn't this changed? And the reason is because these elements don't really offend or upset the actual intended audience. While Korea has not made it a secret that they are deeply interested in spreading their media to other countries, they produce their media first and foremost to their own citizens, secondly to their largest foreign audiences, and thirdly to the rest of the world. This is why these stories are allowed to keep in their stereotyping and racism, because their main audiences either buy into it or don't care. This is also why it's more common to see white or black people so clumsily handled, because they are so removed from both Korea and also their largest foreign audiences, which are other East Asian countries. This is also why you don't see those countries being messed around with quite so much, and can actually find instances where those countries and their people are represented well. In Flower Boy Next Door, there's a character of Japanese descent, and he is strange and a little out there, but he also feels like a person, and his quirkiness is part of his character and doesn't feel out of place in a show full of quirky characters.
580원이나 있어요. 저도 이제 마이너스 인생이 아니에요. 제 통장에 580원이나 있다고요. 580원.
He is a good foreign character. This is also probably how they managed to get a Japanese actor to play him instead of having a Korean actor pretending to be Japanese. You know, like every Japanese character of Bridal Mask. A show which vilifies every Japanese character except one. Even then, he eventually turns evil and becomes an antagonist. And even more unfortunate is that his character arc is the only good thing in this show. And I mean that in how well it is constructed, paced, and acted, the quality of which I am sure was a complete and total accident in that hot mess of a show that was bafflingly popular in Korea. And I mention these instances because it's relevant, and also because I want it to be clear that I'm not just complaining about not seeing myself represented the way I want to see myself in a K-drama. I could not care less about including more racial representation in K-dramas, the reason for which I will not get into because it's a whole thing and not directly related to this topic. Sometimes foreigners pop up in K-dramas, and that's fine. Sometimes the creators want a chunk of the story to take place in another country, and that's fine. Although starting the series in another country and only staying there for 2 to 4 episodes is a cheap way to get people interested in your series, and I hate it for many reasons. The reason I take such umbrage with this claim is because creators use foreigners in foreign countries as excuses for lazy, sloppy, and illogical storytelling and expect to get away with it. The whole thing feels like one big con. The show distracts you with shinies like a beautiful backdrop, but then cheat you out of actual good storytelling when you're not looking. It's just insulting and makes me lose faith in the creators because they are clearly stating that if they can cut corners when telling a story, then they will. And considering I watch K-dramas because I like stories, it's pretty off-putting when I realize the people making these stories only care about them as far as they have to. I would also like to point out that while Kim Un-suk is by far the best at representing other countries and foreigners, other shows have done fairly decent jobs as well. 30 but 17 has some white characters and they're fine. They're in it for all of about 2 seconds, but they're not terribly handled, which is very common in K-dramas. Let us remember poor Abigail. The scenes in the Czech Republic from Are You Human Too are pretty decent as well. They're still not the best, but at least there is some variety in character types, and foreigners aren't just all terrible people. Woodium School has some of the best foreign characters period, since they're recurring characters and actually, you know, characters. They do often get pushed aside in favor of the Korean characters, but this is a huge level up. And one of the characters is even black, which is extremely rare since most shows want a white person to speak English.
Everything 자급자족 있거든?
네?
키우고 자르고 설고 끓이고 먹고 입고 빨고 지우고 버리고를
학교에 돈이 없구나. 걱정 마요. 내가 우리 아버지한테 다 후원하라고 하면 되니까.
돈이 없어서가 아니야. 어? 안 하지 않는 걸 안 하게 생각하지 마.
There is absolutely no reason for this trend to continue on. All creators, not just Kim Un-suk or Jo Sang-hee, Jo Jung-ju, Kim Hyun-hee, are capable of making decent foreign characters and writing decent stories that take place in other countries. All it takes is giving the same attention to those parts as the rest of the story. Because as it stands, I physically recoil anytime I see a non-Korean on a K-drama because I know whatever happens next is going to be painful to watch, and it just doesn't have to be that way.
A play about pieces of feces is what we are together.
Greg.
Well, we gave him the medicine, so let's see.